I think we might get started. Welcome everybody. I've been assured that we are quorate, so we will start. We would like to acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Gawler people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Gawler people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Gawler people today. So we have a Mayor and a Jeffrey, sorry, not Graham, absent. Do we have any word from any of them, either of them? No? Okay, they may still rock up. Are there any motions for leave of absence? No leaves of absence. Okay. Any declarations of interest? No. Would someone like to move a confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting, please? Moved Helen, seconded by Paul. Any discussion? Those in favour, please show. Carried. Right, business arising, and I believe there's no business arising that's not already on the agenda, is that right? Okay, so we've got item 6.1, request for permission to publish the James Martin Foundry photographs. Jacinta, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Chair. So David Geehan came down from New South Wales to visit the Cultural Heritage Centre. He'd been in contact with us prior to this to ascertain what we had in our collection relating to James Martin's Foundry and also the National Trust. So we were given recently, as the committee is aware, an album of photographs. We were given those through the Gawler History team, who have digitised them and put them on the website. We hold the physical album. So these items, these photographs that Mr Geehan is requesting are in the public domain. However, he has honoured the process and has asked permission, but noting that they are in the public domain and that he is looking for quite a large number, he has requested, should permission be given, that there is a discount on the $16 per photograph. These will go into a book on the James Martin Foundry that's due to be published in 2026. It's the second book that he has written on foundries, and it will be published by the Railway Society in New South Wales, who are a not-for-profit. So again, that as part of that, he has requested a discount.
Thank you, Jacinta. Discussion, questions? Helen?
Yeah, I'm happy to consider perhaps a discount, but I'm very mindful that we're setting a precedent here. So I think it needs some careful decision making. We are able to offer him a very high quality digital copy of an original, so in effect he's getting a very good quality which will be suitable. We have dealt with non-for-profits before and we've waived, in that case, as I recall, they didn't want any charge, so perhaps some discount, and I'd be interested to hear what other people think might be a suitable amount. I've just done a quick maths. At the moment, he would be charged $192 for 12 images.
Sorry, Deb.
Thank you. I just want to ask a question. So we were just discussing economics. What purpose are we doing the discount for? It's a not-for-profit. And what sort of discount is he asking for? And then if we're doing that, does that mean that we give out on a bulk, to everyone? Because it could sort of, as you say, start that precedent. Yeah.
So through the chair, he hasn't specified. He just asked for a discount. And that's on the basis that these are already in the public domain. I don't think he would be requesting of the committee if these were not in the public domain. So I think we're balancing that we absolutely encourage academics to use our collection and cultural tourists, and he came down to Gawler and spent some time. We're balancing that about nominal sums, really. It really doesn't add much to our operating budget, these sums of money. So there are a couple of things that we're balancing in this space when we talk about, especially when we're talking about images that are already in the public domain.
Do you have something in mind?
Through the chair, absolutely don't.
I'm assuming that the book is being sold for profit.
So through the chair, it will be sold for a non-profit society is publishing the book and selling the book. So it would go into their fundraising, but that's all. So it's not making a profit for Mr. Gian at all.
Adrian.
Yeah, look, I had a look on the internet and I couldn't find them on that mentioned as a not-for-profit through the ACNC. They didn't actually come up through their ABN as not-for-profit, but I'm not, because if they're a not-for-profit charity, they probably would have been on there, but they're not a charity, but you can still be a not-for-profit and not a charity. So it's not conclusive, but I was just interested to know. But they don't actually say anything on their website about being not-for-profit. But so I'm confused in that respect.
Helen.
Yeah, I suspect what they really mean is that they're a volunteer community organisation, which is quite different. You're quite correct. So whatever we decide, I'd like to make sure that the wording of 2 is extended so that we very, very clearly say why the decision is being made. Because without that, I think this, again, the precedent that we're sending and why we would make a decision will be unclear in this motion. But I don't know, I'm a bit torn. Because you're going to spend the same amount of time and staff time as you would if it was another organisation. So the $16 has been based on the staff time to take the image and share.
Helen, do you have a suggestion that, I mean, Jacinta hasn't committed a suggestion for obvious reasons, I guess. So can we help her in suggesting a cost? Deb.
To preempt that a little bit, so you don't have any suggestion whatsoever?
So through the chair, no, I don't. Mr. Gian just asked for a discount on the sum. He didn't specify that discount. I didn't discuss a discount with him. It was via email that he sent the request through. So he came down to Gawler, he looked at all of them, he looked at the images he'd like to include in the book and listed those, sent us his form, and on that he requested a discount.
He must have done this with his previous book. He must have got a lot of photographs in his previous book. Is it worth getting back to him and asking what he was charged for them?
So through the chair, a lot of organisations and heritage collections don't charge for reproduction of their photographs. So my understanding is that in Gawler previously things got a little bit loose in the reproduction of photographs, so we take a more considered and formal approach, but equally we need to be aware that other cultural organisations, the State Library for instance, you can get many of their photographs for free, so there are things to look at there.
Through the chair, that's not quite true. If you want it to a printing standard from the State Library, there can well be a charge. So it depends the quality of image. I think the key for me is that we do hold the originals, but by the agreement by which we acquired them, they've already been released into the public realm. But if we do that, then those previous images for which we do own, and they've been put into the public realm without specific permission, we're caught with that as well. So, and in one sense, I was caught with this when I came to the committee in a private capacity asking for possible images for the E.H. Coombe book. It is a bit overwhelming when you want to use so many. In my case, the cost was such that we reduced it back to 1 or 2 prints, and we actually went and sourced them elsewhere because they weren't original. which was disappointing, I guess, because the point of it is to put money back into the collection so that they can be maintained. And that was as I understand, that's why one of the reasons we decided to charge is because the council is spending sufficient money on this, and this is a way of people making use of these images can contribute towards that ongoing maintenance. So, I think I've taught myself around in a circle. So, sorry.
Okay, Adrian and then Paul.
Just thinking about it, I suppose if it's covering costs, if that's the right term, then if there's more being copied, it probably isn't going to take as long for someone to do the copying. So is that an idea?
That'd certainly help in working out a price, I guess, yeah. Paul and then Deb.
I'm just trying to get the fees and charges that council charges, but I do know, I think it's for Gawler, not-for-profit community organisations get a 50% discount on, say, hiring this facility. So that's a starting point, I suppose, not-for-profits.
I just do want to acknowledge as well that they're going to provide us a free copy of the book at the end as well. So that is a cost to them.
True.
Can I ask a question? Jacinta, when you think about it, of the people who have requested images, and you've given us a long list, surely the majority of those would be in the same boat. They'd be community organisations / non-for-profits. So if we use Paul's, we'll be accepting more $8 rather than $16 contributions. If we put it on a blanket 50% off, that's my...
Because we're sort of already doing that for this facility here. Yeah, it counts. Yeah.
You're saying that's a precedent?
What's that?
You're saying that's a precedent?
No, it's a starting point. That's what we do now for not-for-profits.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah, community group, non-for-profits.
Okay, so I'm really looking for a motion here, please. Yeah, Adrian?
Just another thought, it could be scaled. So if you've got up to 5, it costs something or other more than 5 to 10, you could have it, and then you could have a scale. Because most people aren't going to be after a dozen pictures, are they?
No.
Yeah, I think I like that idea. So I like the idea of a scale, and I'm thinking maybe a 10. Up to 10, it's 160 in there after it drops, or is 10... So he's going for 12, so there'd be 116 and 2 discounts of 50%?
Well, why not just 50% on everything? $8 each.
Because I think 99% of the people coming in hereafter, be they family historians, people studying, whatever, it'll be 50% for 98% of the
But
people.
are they registered not-for-profits? That's the whole thing.
Neither is this.
Excuse me for interrupting. David would like to contribute something.
So through the chair, the conversation around categorisation of the requester is probably the wrong conversation. It's not the fact that people in the past are being the same and being disadvantaged as a result. The point we're trying to make, I believe, through the report is that these images are in the public domain and they were provided to the collection in that environment, and that is the reason we're recommending for a reduction, not so much the fact that they're not-for-profit, because we have charged other similar organisations the full rate, but those images have not been in the public domain. So that's, to me, the point of difference, not so much the categorisation of the publisher. Yes, that adds value, definitely, and if it was a corporate publisher, you'd probably say, actually, no. However, so there is that element, but it's the availability of the images elsewhere, and if we lose the opportunity to provide the images from the Heritage Centre, we lose the recognition and the annotations in the book that these were provided by. So there is that trade-off as well, so just bringing that to the conversation.
Well, given that, when someone suggests what we do as a result?
There is some wording up there already, so that, thank you for the minute taker. The charge of the images will be X due to the images being available in the public domain and the requesting publisher being a not-for-profit incorporated association? We're not sure. So we need to slightly change that, and the requesting...
So who's he from?
David, what would you suggest we pop in there? Yeah, thank you. And I'm not sure that we know that they're selling the book for fundraising purposes only. My guess is that they could be doing a recuperation of costs. I think we need to be careful there too.
Do we need to add that clause about what the sale of the book's going to do? We could probably just finish it at selling the book.
So through the chair, they're an other incorporated entity, according to the ABN lookup details of the Australian Government's Business Register. The Light Rail Research Society of Australia is an other incorporated entity. So it's not a profit incorporation, other being an association. Yeah. Society kind of thing, yes. So they're an other incorporated entity.
So after being another incorporated association, or entity or association?
Entity.
Entity.
And through the chair, to answer Deb's question, they are registered for GST, but that may be because of the turnover within the association, because I think the threshold was lifted from 50 to 100, but if they're in that threshold, they must be registered for GST. Any not-for-profit or any association is in the same boat, so it's not a GST thing, it's the incorporation.
Okay, so where does that leave us with what we're going to do about charges, having got all that information?
We can change it to a percentage just if you prefer, rather than listing a dollar figure.
Would that help if we did it as a percentage figure instead of a dollar amount? Well, that would then be ongoing, wouldn't it? Yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to happy with 50% is 50% to this community discount. This is not to. I think 50% is actually a bit generous. I would take perhaps just to pick out a figure. 25%. That's too low. I don't know. 50% just seems...
I'll move it.
So through the chair, the motion's up on the screen as it is at the moment, and the contentious point being 2. So the charge for the images will be discounted by 50% due to the images being available in the public domain and the requesting publisher being an other incorporated entity that will be selling the book.
Okay, I need a seconder.
That's
We've got a
moved by
seconder for
Councillor
that?
Koch.
Seconded Adrian Brown. Okay, now we'll have a discussion on that motion. Put your mics on if you're going to speak.
I think in particular, because we're getting a free copy of the book that goes with that, as you say, we get the recognition. We'd rather they did that. It's in the public domain. For those reasons, I'm going to go with the 50. Yeah.
How do you feel about it, Jacinta?
So through the chair, my aim is that the collection gets the recognition. I would hate a book on James Martin's Foundries not to have a connection with the Gawler Heritage Collection.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, no, through that, I mean, I just point out that every time whether we charge or don't charge full amount, we always ask for a book back, so it's a fairly standard thing. But I am swayed by Jacinta's, I'm happy to go with the 50%.
Those in favour, please show. Hooray. Thank you, everybody. Carried unanimously. .2, inquiries. Did you want to talk to that at all?
So through the Chair, I'd just like to draw the committee's attention to the inquiries that we've received from interstate. So Victoria, Western Australia, New South Wales and Queensland via email or phone. And then we had 6 visitors from interstate, from Queensland and Western Australia. So they've travelled a long way to come to Gawler to do their research. So I think that's a testimony to what we have to offer in our collection.
And to the publicity, I mean, that people are aware of this place, which is, yeah, it's good. Any discussion, questions? Helen?
Yeah, I also note that there's 7 internal inquiries, so yet again, that is proving one of the early plans for the collection, that they're actually informing the rest of the council, and that's being used, which is, I think, brilliant, but does need to be acknowledged that that's a resource that perhaps then needs to be supported by the rest of the organisation. What does my heart particularly good, besides the tourists coming to the town, is that State Heritage contacted the collection. Little happy dance. Again, that, as the Chair has pointed out, that just means now at a state level, it's, we are being identified as a valuable resource, so well done.
Indeed, thank you. Any other discussion? We'll move on to 7. Move and second. It just says notes. That confuses me. Okay, so just moving that. Helen's moving it. Seconding, please. Someone to second it. Deb? Okay. Those in favour, please show. Against, thank you. 7.1, Cultural Heritage Centre Budget Update.
Through the Chair, the report, for your information, provides obviously the financial year to date, first half of the year, noting that majority of spending will occur in this next 6 months, or to the end of financial year, particularly with the exhibition opening and the cost being incurred there. And just to highlight again, as we really like to do at each meeting, is the number of volunteer hours, 767 from the 1st of July to the 31st of December. All of the staff would like to thank the volunteers very much for their contribution and assistance in the space.
Thank you, Natasha. Any questions or discussion? Helen?
Yeah, through you, Chair. At the previous meeting, we've had a discussion about a budget bid for increased staffing hours. I just wonder how that process is developing.
Sure.
Through the Chair, we'll be presenting a report to the next committee on that budget analysis in terms of a business case.
Thank you, David. Any other discussion or questions? Helen?
The timing of that, David, given that we start budget preparation shortly, so that will come to us in April. That's fairly late in the budget cycle, perhaps? Or is that sufficient to go in?
Through the Chair, it is sufficient to go in because the first draft budget process is end of April before it's even considered through to going out for consultations.
Okay.
It's already within the system as a bid, as a line item, saying that the business case is being developed and coming, so it is still within the timeframes for the
no, so long as it's within the system, that's my reassurance.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Any other questions? All right. Those in favour, please show. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Natasha. Half asleep. All right. Move Paul. Seconded Adrian. Sorry, Sarah. I'm not on it today. All right. So we come to policy implications. We've done that. Now we're up to items listed for discussion. Updated motion list. Any discussion on the updated motion list? Any questions? No? Okay. Exhibition update. Would you like to give us that?
So through the chair, the committee received a plan of the exhibition with some style guide possibilities. I wanted to talk about some of the items that will be going into the exhibition. So we have some archaeological items that were excavated from Pioneer Park. They have been to Art Lab and had a clean up. So it's digging stick. There's some casket furniture, little bits and pieces that will go into the exhibition from that space. We also recently found at the depot a cast iron bench. It was in pieces, but it was originally at the Williston Cemetery up until the 1980s. It's manufactured by James Martin, so we're having a quote on putting that back together so that that could go into the exhibition as well. So that would be a fabulous thing to have, and then it can enter the collection. So we're looking at, as we said, we've divided it up into births, marriages and deaths. There's quite a lot in our collection around those items. It's in terms of the aesthetic, it's quite simple. It's much more simpler than some of the other ones, which have been quite theatrical and varied. So this is black and white and ecru as a colour scheme. I think that's important because we need people to feel that they're going to get a different experience with each of our exhibitions. As we know, the following one will be on the rivers. That will be a very natural themed, different experience again. So that's where we're at with the exhibition at this stage. It will not be as text heavy as the current one, which has been excellent, but these themes are less around that. But it's a social history. It's really talking about the rituals and experiences of people in Gawler when they had their babies, they got married in the town, or they were committed to one of the two cemeteries.
Paul?
Jacinta, you talked about something that, an artefact from Pioneer Park and from a casket. Was that right? Is that culturally sensitive?
So through the chair, no, it's furniture. It's not a personal.
Not part of the casket.
No, it's what they call casket furniture. So it's actually a lock. And it's a lock that was on the casket, we believe, because this person died in the city and wanted to come back to Gawler to be buried. And on the train journey, it was fairly rough, so they used to lock the caskets. So, but no, it's not culturally sensitive. Museums under the ICOM Guide of Ethics are absolutely allowed to respectfully display items like that.
Just looking at the image that you sent, are they physically threads? I just wanted to clear that up.
So through the chair, we might have noticed that Richard likes to hang things along the top to give layers of visual interest. We were looking for a way to tie the themes of birth, marriage and death together. And we will be talking about people who choose not to be married in this exhibition too, as we bring it into a modern age. And that's where the threads came from, and that's why there will be some threads going along. There will be things hanging from the threads as well, some small little symbols.
What were the threads made?
Yarn.
Reminds me of the Greek myth of Arachne, who wove the web of life of human beings from birth to death.
Okay.
Or for those of us old enough, the web of life.
The web of life, right.
So my question would be, again, I think we need to reiterate that there will be no human remains, which makes it appropriate. But I think the artefacts that you described do bring it home to actually the Pioneer Park, which is great. I guess I'm asking whether there'll be some chance to cross-promote the resources that people have if they want to find out more about their births, deaths and marriages, and how that might be achieved, or has there been some thought about that?
So through the chair, we're intending at this stage, budget willing, to put a iPad on a stand in the exhibition that will link to our catalogue so that people can see that connection to the information that we have. So it will be a snapshot of the catalogue, not the whole catalogue. So people will be able to understand that those items are available there for further research, further details, and an encouragement to come downstairs and not just on the ground floor.
What about databases? Just thinking what the heritage collection's got, but also the library in terms of ancestry or other genealogical. We're thinking that far out, although that's quite a broad scope, yeah. Or the workshops that you've been holding over the years with family history.
So through the chair, we will be promoting family history. One of the requests from the National Trust, from Margaret House, is that we worked with the National Trust to have a family history support group regularly meet. So that's another opportunity for people to bring in their questions and just as a community maybe feed off each other, not necessarily us in that space. So there will be those sorts of links to help do that. But while this is about families, and we'll reflect back to that, this is more about the Gawler institutions that supported those rituals. So the birthing hospitals, the churches, and the churches again for the weddings. So it's more about that and showcasing the items from the collection that relate to that.
So, we all know and highly respect Taylor.
Hang on, Helen. Oh, somebody before you. Deb?
I was just wondering, or have quick thought possibility workshops that people could book into beforehand and get a little bit of a teaser out of things that people might be able to be connected to some of these support people, and just make it a really sort of immersive experience that sort of goes, they take away, but they come with and take away, and just an idea.
So through the chair, I think that's an excellent idea. We look at holding workshops. We were just doing a bit of analysis of our programming coming up at a history festival, which I'll speak about later. And we were considering running a family history workshop in the history festival, but last year we got 3 people. But when we hold family history workshops in September, we're averaging 15 to 17 people. So that's obviously the key month for that sort of thing. So once the exhibition is embedded, we will look at a number of different opportunities to take aspects of that out to the community.
Thanks, Jacinta. Helen, did you want to say something? No, I'm sorry. I cut your water off. I didn't mean to do that. Is there any other discussion on this topic? No? All right. Well, thank you very much, Jacinta, for that. Rotation of large artworks in the collection.
So thank you, Chair. The reason I wanted to bring this to the committee's attention is that we have a number of large artworks, photographs, things like that. And it's always been our goal to, at various times, rotate through the collection and to bring them to the public space. So in thinking about that, we started to think about where we could hang them. And this was also driven by the fact that when we took the Andrew McCormack's down last time, one of them is exhibiting some concerning structural defects. So it hasn't gone back. So our Andrew McCormack portraits are heading towards 150 years old. They're very, very important. So as part of that discussion, I wanted to ask for your guidance, because then I can go and create either reports or plans about, do we, except for very rare occasions, request council designate the James Martin Room as pretty much a permanent home of the Andrew McCormacks, and so that they're not coming up and down. So it would need to be a particularly good reason for that to be used as part of an exhibition space, because they are very important paintings and we need to be cognisant of that. And then as part of that discussion, should we install a hanging rail in the reading room? And I've spoken to State Heritage and they were quite happy. They didn't see any issues about that, to give us a little bit more flexibility to hang some of these things for short periods of time in the reading room, and also to host and bring in exhibitions from elsewhere that really require a somewhat manned space. So Helen and I met with Belinda Lauke, Rose Lauke's daughter, who has an extensive collection and would be very keen to lend us some of those paintings for us to have a short-term Rose Lauke exhibition, which would be fabulous because it links to our Rose Lauke, yes. We've also Helen's had a little bit of preliminary discussion with the family of George Winnan, who associated, long association, and he was a noted artist. The family has a collection, and again, we could potentially hang that for a short space of time as well. So I thought if we started this discussion about how we see the reading room as a space that rotates artwork, and also whether we want to, how we feel about the Andrew McCormack's in a designated space. We have these large artworks, and I've given these images because I thought that would help you sort of understand, and these are all just the large items. Other smaller items I can rotate through a hanging space in the research centre, and depending on the item, in different spaces around. But these are some of the bigger ones, and they deserve to have a outing at some stage, but we need to just be thinking about that I'm just trying to strategise for where we might go.
I'm just wondering about the mechanics of putting it up and down. Do you do that, or you bring someone else to do that?
So through the chair, when we are taking the Andrew McCormack's up and down, that's a 3-person job. That's Petra and myself, who are trained, and someone who's just got a bit of height and a bit of strength to do that. So we know what we're doing. The very large artworks, for instance, if we were taking down some of the ones that we have in the reading room now in order to facilitate an exhibition, I'd be bringing in professionals to do that.
Helen.
Yeah, I'd like to support the idea that we leave the McCormack's in place. It's a significant collection that is now old and to some degree fragile, and I think removing those constantly and popping them back. I know that the feeling was that we didn't want things to remain in place forever because people can no longer see them. But the way that they're hanging at the moment, there's sufficient space around them, they reflect the James Martin, the painting after whom, that honours James Martin, obviously. But I think it's a worthwhile collection to stay there, and they're impressive. And as I say, a state significant collection of McCormack's. I also strongly support the idea of moving the reading room, moving along now into the reading room, becoming an area that we can display. I think that it's time we have, we've considered this for a long time. State heritage is okay with it. I'm starting to think that we will need to look at the costs of getting professionals in against it maybe even investing in our own scissor lift, because I'm sure there are other places around the Institute building where things need to go up and down that might make it worthwhile. So. But that's for the future. We'll start off small and go from that. There are also some other things that I'm very much aware that there's a couple of other large quilts, so there's quite a lot of material. And people from the community do ask where they are. So again, as Jacinta has said, part of it is that things are not locked away and that we do have the ability, where appropriate and with the right curation, to bring some of this material out and put them on display for period of time. So I think, it's time to activate the reading room. Thank you.
Deb, and then Paul. Oh, and Karen, did you want to speak as well?
I was just going to ask if they're going on permanent display, how does that sit with the archival aspects of it? And also I support the idea of the reading room for sure, yeah.
So through the chair, when we say permanent, we're talking about the Andrew McCormack's in the space. You're balancing risk. Every time you move, as you would be well aware, when you move a painting, there is a risk, no matter who's doing that work. And the structure of these is starting to show wear and tear. So they are, given we are an air-conditioned facility and we monitor that, they're, in my opinion, safer. Now, I'm not suggesting that they stay there forever, and I will be suggesting at some point to council that James Martin needs a rest from the light. So it's not that they are permanently there and they will never be moved.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my question, whether the light was going to deteriorate the actual image over time. That was going to be my question.
So through the chair, light does always have an effect over time. They were in the reading room downstairs for nearly 150 years without any climate control, pretty much. You know, they've had layers of cigarette smoke and cigar smoke and gas lighting. Oils are particularly hardy, which is a good thing. Had they been watercolours, I don't think we'd be, enjoying them to the extent that they are. But we do monitor that, so we will be balancing that. So if you remember when the Gawler Institute banner was restored, and the advice from Art Lab was that comes out for 6 months every 10 years. Now that's a fabric and a silk, so it's very, very different. So we will at some stage be retiring them for a period of time to ensure that they're not, but that doesn't need to be yet.
Jacinta, Karen.
Yeah, well, with the McCormacks, I think they need to be watched, and if any of them need, restoration techniques, they need to be reported back to this committee. I do like the idea of hanging them and leaving them in place. I think as you said, every time you touch them, there's a risk. So as long as they are reviewed, and if they come back to this committee needing restoration, I think that's most important. The reading room, I think that's really, we need to rotate, and I really love the idea of Rose Lauke exhibition. I think that's a fabulous idea. So I think the reading room can do with rotation of artworks, as long as it's not all men, because all of these are men. And so just bring it up, and just not all men. Not all men. Well, Rose Lauke is a fabulous start, but I think that if we can incorporate not just portraits, but you've got. It's the first time I've seen the two May brothers, Alfred and Frederick. Frederick May, actually, I think it's Frederick, is one of the on North Terrace. Frederick May. Yeah. So he's got a plaque up on North Terrace as a particularly outstanding individual. So that's quite useful. And the Gawler Lodge, that's quite, that hasn't got a picture of a man. And My Grandmother's Spirit by Julie Tucker would be something to be, and also the quilts. I think the quilts would, as Helen said, that people are asking where they are, and I think that would be quite useful if we promoted. We're hanging the quilts, and they can come and have a look, and we rotate them. Yeah. And the Jubilee tapestry as well. Yes. Yeah. The Jubilee tapestry is really beautiful. Yeah. The Embroiderers Guild of South Australia. So that's absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, I think that would be quite useful for the reading room. Thank you.
I would like to see, with the McCormacks and the hanging, some kind of link on the webpage or out there, of the history. Make it a storytelling that somehow becomes very attractive and draws people to actually want to see it. So, as opposed to just, as you say, we walk in and we stop seeing things, and I know that feeling well with art on a wall, but to somehow, where can we place that story digitally elsewhere so that people sort of then say, oh, gee, let's go see this? Is there some way?
So through the chair, what we could do, which is very familiar in galleries, is to have the clear labels as we do here for items to give more information. And then if we've got substantial information sitting behind that, that could have a link to where that, QR code to where that more substantial information is sitting. So, you know, an initial thing about who the portrait is of, and Andrew McCormack, but then go back deeper. And I think that would be important in reminding the community that this is a state significant collection of Andrew McCormack's.
Thank you, Jacinta. Helen and then Karen.
Yeah, I agree, because if you take it one more layer, there's an intriguing story as to why the Gawler Institute has such a significant collection, and that goes back to one of our institute librarians. So, yeah, I just support that we have, I think I've put my hand up to do that at some point, but that's okay. I just wanted to support the Mayor's words, and I actually think that perhaps when we display some of these larger items, we could actually do a call out to the family to supplement the story behind the men, and it might be a way of sourcing some of the women that supported them. I think knowing a couple of these, I think we'd get a really good, well, certainly when we approached the Lauke family, it was overwhelming how much they wanted to put Rose back into the picture. You know, she was Mrs. Alfred Sheard, but she was also Rose, and they were very keen, and still are, to do that. So I think it's an opportunity that we've got to bring the women forward.
Thank you, Helen.
Forgot what I was going to say. I can't remember what I was going to say. Yeah, go.
Back to Adrian.
Yeah, just picking up on what Deborah said about the stories behind, and I was thinking about just having done a little bit of research into a couple of those portraits, and two of them, when you look at them, they were commissioned by the town for the two guys that died in that railway accident up at Roseworthy. And it would be nice to, I suppose, some interp about that so that people could hear that story, because when you look at it, those two portraits of those people, Alice Burton was taken very obviously off of a photograph, and the photograph exists. I think, yeah, and then Barnett went, he was a little, yeah, and then because I've actually looked at a Robert Fotheringham painting, which is in the Kapunda, because I live in his old house. They have one, and it's also off of and someone who I know who is a descendant of Robert Fotheringham. He has a small portrait which came through to him through the family, which is also a McCormack, although not signed, which is of the same photograph. So there's some really interesting stories about these portraits.
With the QR code, there's many people that don't know how to use QR coding, so it would be good to have a printed out sheet in our customer service areas, and also the Visitors Information Centre, and also the library, so that people don't have to use QR codes, because some people just don't know how to use them. And we have printed sheets so that people can really understand what's up on the walls.
Just as a matter of interest, and I know that we're going to raise this in a minute, but as a result of the History Month discussions we've been having, the Civic Centre guides met with Natasha and Brett McCullum. We talked about having some organised tours of the Civic Centre as part of History Month, and the one that we agreed on was the art that's in this building, including, of course, the James Martin Room portraits. But it sounds like there's a lot of more information that we could do with, because both, you know, permanently written sheets, but also other things stuck on the walls beside them. Because there is a dearth of information readily available at present. It's very difficult to get whole of stuff about them, so it would be good to have that for a whole range of reasons, but the guides would certainly benefit from it. Any other discussion at all? No? All right. Well, we'll move on to... Oh, you want to... Yes, sorry.
Sorry, thank you. Through the chair, I should have put this as items listed for discussion, but I'd just like to update the committee on the History Festival plans for the Cultural Heritage Centre and the Civic Centre. So as Judy pointed out, there'll be guided tours of the Civic Centre focusing on the artworks and the large photographs, this room right through, including our reconciliation wrap artwork. We are having Rosemary Cadden, the author of McDouall's Sturt, Hitches a Ride, as a guest speaker. So she'll be talking about his exploits and her journey to retrack them. We have Associate Professor Benjamin Mountford from the Australian Catholic University, who is coming to speak on the importance of learning history. So he's a bit of a specialist in that space. In recent times, we've developed a strong relationship with the University of South Australia. That was just before Christmas, who are looking at doing some work with their young students in game design. They're looking for a heritage space for them to do game design and 3D and digital interpretation, and we may provide that as a space for them. But this is the first time that we've had a relationship with the ACU. We have it with Flinders University through the Pioneer Park project. So I think this is it's going to be very interesting to have Professor Mountford here for that. We are also working with the RSL to have an exhibition for 1 week downstairs on the ground floor in G3. So that will be items from the RSL's collection and the Gawler Heritage Collection. That is titled Gawler's Military History, a study of bravery and resilience. So that was a good opportunity for the RSL. They approached us so that people who have never been to the RSL can still see their collection. So we'll be doing that, and we'll also be having guided tours of the exhibition. The Mayor's called a meeting of the Heritage Network recently. We've all got together and discussed what we're doing across Gawler. We will be having our traditional Gawler calendar of events as we have in previous years, and there'll be a launch of that at the end of April when we know when the History Trust, we've always as a courtesy waited until generally the day after they launch. So as soon as I have confirmation about when they launch, we'll be doing that. So we've got quite a lot happening for the History Festival, and again, we're supporting other parts of the town as community groups as they do their events as well.
Thank you, Jacinta. Sorry that I forgot about that. Is there any questions or discussion? Yes, Helen?
Yeah, just as a comment, the gentleman who gave... knows a lot about pianos, who works at the University of Adelaide, Ben somebody is... I noticed that he's putting on a talk during History Month in the city. I flag him as somebody that we might be interested in getting out here again. He's particularly good. My question, though, relates back, to 8.2. Can we just have a reminder of the timeline now, please, for the exhibition, where we're going from here?
So through the chair, we don't have an exhibition opening date yet, so we are anticipating towards the end of April. I'd like it to be in situ before the History Festival, so I'm hoping for possibly the 3rd week of April. So we'll be able to firm that up in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll look at the diary of what's going on in the building and the elected members' diary and all those sorts of things so that we can tee that up. As soon as I have a tentative date, I will send that out to the committee for their diaries.
And the problems you were having with air conditioning in the room, is that being solved?
So through the chair, yes. So for anyone who's not aware, the air conditioning in the Heritage Gallery failed. It took a week to get a part. During that time, with the very hot weather, we monitor the temperature in there. It continued to rise. It rose to a point where I wasn't comfortable anymore. So to minimise the fluctuations in the temperature, we shut the gallery and turned all the lights off for a few days. We got a new part, and then another part of the system failed. However, it's back operating as of Thursday. The lights are back on. We are fully functional.
Thank you. Centre. Any other questions or discussion relating to this topic or one we've missed? No? All right. Thank you very much. Any future discussions for future meetings? Oh, management plan, yes, and budget. So one of the budget things was staffing. Is there anything else we want to discuss about that? No? All right. Questions without notice? Motions without notice? Close the meeting. It's almost 5 o'clock, not quite. Thank you very much, everybody. Particularly thank you to the staff for all their input.